is calling for the Defence Minister, Thandi Modise, to account tonight following the death of a South African soldier in neighbouring Mozambique. The official opposition is demanding to know how long South African National Defence Force members will be deployed to the volatile Cabo Delgado region of Mozambique. A total of 1,500 SANDF members are part of a SADC mission in that part of Mozambique. Joining us now to talk more about this is the Democratic Alliance's spokesperson on issues of defence and military veterans. That's Kobus Marais. Mr. Marais, a very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. So you've said in your statement that SADC and the South African government should take responsibility for the death of Corporal Khatebe. What would taking responsibility look like?
Well, obviously, responsibility means that you have to take to be accountable for what happened. And we hope that there will be a proper investigation, because on face value, it seems like we might have had a problem with military intelligence, because we should have foreseen ambush, and specifically the second ambush, with proper military intelligence. Secondly, I think what is very, very important is that we have got a very, very effective attack helicopters with the Rafale, which we have used very successfully in the DRC, and both the Rafale and the Gripen fighter aircraft should have been, being of assistance, especially when our soldiers are evacuated. Now, that is the purpose of attack helicopters and the Gripens, to make sure that no unnecessary attacks take place when our soldiers are evacuated. I think this is very important, that we have to analyze this, because SADC must decide whether we are going to properly protect our soldiers, or whether we're going to leave them as vulnerable as it seems like they were this time around. We cannot afford losing our soldiers' lives, and we have got the strategic high prime mission equipment, and we just have to make sure that we have got the money if we want to get involved in regional safety operations like this. Obviously, it is very important that SADC must properly fund such an operation, whether it is via the African Union, the European Union, the United Nations, or even those countries who's got a direct interest in Cabo Delgado. But we cannot go in with a half-baked military and safety plan and then expose our soldiers unnecessarily to risk like this.
You sit on the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Issues of Defence. The SANDF deployment as part of a SADC mission to Cabo Delgado, Mozambique, is now months-long. How much detail has been provided to the committee about the state of the battle itself, as well as the welfare of SANDF members generally in that part of Mozambique?
Well, I must say at this stage the news has come through bits and pieces, and to a large extent from our own and my own intelligence sources, not necessarily from the South African National Defence Force. I know that there's a closed session meeting planned for early in 2022, where they're supposed to inform us on all operations, including Operation Vikela in Mozambique. And hopefully at that closed session meeting, they will be open and frank with us. Because one must remember that, if you do your job properly, I more than often already know the answers of these challenges, because I have got my own intelligence sources, and I make sure that it's reliable and credible. And we must just get the Defence Force to acknowledge that, and to make sure that they are properly funded and properly equipped. Otherwise, we can lose more lives, and that we cannot allow.
And in terms of going forward, at this point, it doesn't appear as though the insurgency in Cabo Delgado is going anywhere. It has been raging now for the better part of, a decade or so. Should South Africa go the long haul in this deployment?
Well, remember, it is not a South African deployment, because I was very clear about that. It should never be a South African deployment. It must be a regional deployment. It must be something similar to what we've got in the DRC, where we're part of a bigger SADC group, Force Intervention Brigade. And yes, we can get involved. I don't foresee that there will be peace and stability within the next 3 months. We know that initially our soldiers, the employment of our soldiers were authorized for 3 months and then a further 3 months extension. I think we must be realistic that the kind of operations that the insurgents are running and the way that they've acted now and operated now, even against our own forces, we must make peace with the fact that this is going to take years. So with the current strategic deployment and how the SAMM forces are working, it's certainly going to take years. Can we afford to be involved in Cabo Delgado for many years? Certainly not out of our own resources. And that's why it is so important that we must have clarity from SADC as to who will fund such an operation and such a deployment on the medium and especially the long term.
I'd like to pick up, Kobus, because we're fast running out of time. I'd like to pick up on the point you were making about intelligence earlier and the fact that this insurgency has been going on for such a long time, and it's not just about violence itself. There are economic aspects at play where it's a mineral-rich, natural resource-rich part of Mozambique. Some of the communities feel as though they've been cut out, and that has, to a degree, fueled the birth and the growth of this ISIL-linked militia, shall we call them. As things stand, do you think there was an underestimation, perhaps, by the broader SADC military assessment of just how intense, how powerful the insurgency is?
Well, I think if they underestimated that is actually a very strong indictment against themselves, because many of us, most of us, who know how insurgents are working and know how these ISIL cells are operating, we know that they will attack, they will be vicious, they will withdraw, they will regroup, and they will attack again. I recall a couple of months ago where some people have said, it seems like we have now won the battle. Many of us were not so convinced, and I think this attacks that we have seen over the last week is clearly a confirmation that don't think this is going to be over within a month or 2 or 3. The insurgents are there, and they are properly funded. We know that they've got alternative agendas and narratives that they are driving. So as long as they are well funded and well stocked with ammunition, it is in their interest to drive this insurgency going on. Yes, it is important. The exploration of the natural gas resources on the coast of Mozambique is very important for the whole region and for the world. So the world must come to the party and either fund this operation or bring in some of their own forces to make sure that we get stability. But it's also a finger pointing to the Mozambican government, because if the people of Cabo Delgado have been neglected over many years, clearly African Union, SADC and Mozambique will have to make peace with the fact that they will have to look at the needs and the requirements of the people of Cabo Delgado as well.
Kobus Marais, the DA's spokesperson on issues of defense and military veterans in Parliament. Thank you so much for your time tonight, sir.